Welcome back to Odd Socks. Well, it's the 1st of July, so I thought I'd give you a little quick tour of how the plot is doing at the moment. Now, I've been incredibly busy the last few days and stuff trying to sort things in the background, but I thought I would take this time to actually show you how the plot is doing. We've got some great growth in some areas, and in other areas really quite poor. But we've had a half decent harvest this year. The broccoli we've already started to harvest. The raspberries too. Even a few little cabbages, some of our early cabbages. Some of the peas have now been dug up and beds have been cleared. And it won't be long now until we're starting to harvest all sorts of things. So let's have a look around. Now my runner beans, whereas they've started growing extremely well and getting very tall, the flowers have still yet to be pollinated. Now, it's not as strong as growth as I've had in previous years, but I'm actually growing them differently this year too. It's been a long time since I've actually grown runner beans, and I'm actually quite excited this year because even though it's only me that eats runner beans, I'm actually looking forward to actually making something tasty with them. Now, squashes are absolutely fantastic to put onto a bit of rubbish ground, so long as the hole that you've got is well fed with some good compost or some good fertiliser, and you try and keep that little area as weed free as possible. It will happily romp away along any type of ground. Now, we grow them on these because it keeps the fruit safe from any kind of slug damage or any mould or issues like that. But the leaves are truly beautiful. And it's the one thing I love this time of year, is all the structure of the leaves, giving everything a little bit of shape. Our main brassica bed this year is doing really well. Now, there is some insect damage. That they got attacked quite badly by flea beetle at the beginning of the year, and then the occasional slug which happened. But in general, it's doing well. Now, we've pretty much harvested most of the broccoli that we've had in there, but there's still a few in there that's forming the main heads, and the ones that we've already harvested are now producing side shoots, which is a good tasty addition from your broccoli plant. So don't be too quick to remove your broccoli plants after you've taken the main head. And obviously, as soon as it's finished, it will go onto the compost heap and be a great addition to the compost pile. Welcome to the greenhouse. As you can see, there's probably way too much in here, but things are producing so well. We are so pleased with this particular polytunnel build. For something that cost us so very little to make, we've pretty much made back in our first year of harvest. After seeing the price of tomatoes in the supermarkets, I think we've definitely made this money back. Now, the chilies in here are just growing so big, but they're yet to ripen. Now, I'm pretty sure it's either pepper hots or cayennes. Now, I do believe cayennes are a little bit longer. I could be wrong with that though. I normally am. But they're yet to turn red. And they've all fully grown, but the heat has died off from outside. The temperatures are much lower at the moment, and it looks like for the next couple of weeks it's not going to be overly hot or overly sunny. So we'll see how those go. Most of the tomatoes are all producing fruit now as well, and some of them are getting incredibly tall. Now, I actually struggle to be in here now because of my big ass knocking the fruits and the flowers off the plants. So I've been told I've got to be extremely careful in here not to knock the produce off with my backside. As you can see, the chilies, I'm really hoping that these chilies this year are actually going to be good tasting chilies. And these tomato plants are really starting to get tall. Now, this very tall plant here is called a honeybee. Now, it's kind of a cherry tomato kind of plant. Now, I'm about 5'3" and this is much taller than me. It's over 6 foot. And they're all starting to produce beautiful looking. Oh, and that's why I'm not allowed in here. I've just broken. Okay, so in reality, this is why I'm not allowed in here. Because my ass just broke a plant. So I'm going to hide this so Jamie doesn't see. So I'll film from this angle so I don't actually break anything else. Damn it. Now these African marigolds are absolutely ginormous, and we didn't realise when we sowed them that was what the variety was. But for the polytunnel, they're a bit too big. Even if they are very pretty. Now this is a lovely big tomato. This is Gigantamo. And it seems to be doing okay. Now our tomatoes are doing much, much better in this polytunnel than what they are actually outside. Which is a shame, really. So I've left the polytunnel so I don't do any more damage. So obviously we've still got some of our tomatoes outside as well, and some in one of the no-dig beds. These have really struggled in the ground this year in the no-dig bed. So I think we'll have to rethink how we're going to plant these particular ones. This whole bed seems to be lacking in certain nutrients. The growth isn't as strong in this bed. So it's something we'll have to address at the end of the year with some fresh, good compost. The other beetroot bed I've been harvesting from on a regular basis. Those lettuces definitely need to be pulled. Definitely bolted. I just haven't had a chance. Now the Carobi that got absolutely decimated by pigeons at the beginning of the year have actually started to bulb up. The fennel that I put in here recently, the bulb fennel, it's really started to pick up. And it always amazes me how much growth goes on. Onions won't be long before they're harvestable. So much bindweed though. Really tons and tons of bindweed. Bindweed just gets absolutely everywhere. And once this bed is emptied, I'll actually, using a trowel, start digging it all out. The kale is really starting to take over. It looks so healthy. We've also got a few cabbages and I think cauliflowers. And more broccoli and cauliflower in here too. Now this particular variety, which I'll actually have to figure out which ones it is, it's got more of a flowery appearance. And it's not as tight formed as some of the others. Now the sprouts have just gone crazy. Now this is quite compact in here, but we're taking the risk. Now they're getting plenty of feed and the ground here is really quite good on one of the no-dig beds. But at least we're not going to run out of sprouts this year if they do all come to fruition. Rhubarb's finally picked up. We've really given them a really heavy feed. And I've still undecided whether to move them or not. The bed that we planted up just the other day, that has really started to push on growth. No signs of carrots yet though, but it would be extremely quick if that was the case. Purple sprouting broccoli, which was transplanted. Again, we didn't have as many losses as we thought we would. We actually only lost one. Now I know I've got all the netting on, I just don't want to take all the netting off. The leeks in this bed, I'm hoping will be absolutely fine, but this is where we had the allium leaf miner and the leeks were already in. The kalettes, which we planted again only a couple of weeks ago. The beetroot, which we also planted a couple of weeks ago, transplanted from multi-sown modules. And then again more leeks with some mixed in strawberries that have spread. The beans, now we've got, these are all our dwarf beans. Now we've got a purple variety and we've got a ballotti, and we've got a French green bean. Now, they have all been mixed up, so they will be what they will be. You can see that the beans are actually starting to grow. In fact, I hadn't realised just how much. We sowed very early peas, quite early February I think it was, and then we sowed some peas a little bit later on in the year, I think about 2 months after, a month, 2 months, and that's what we've got left. We've removed the very early peas, and these peas are the ones we got left. Now these are ready to be harvested, so these will be harvested and taken home to depod, but we are finding more and more pea moth in these particular peas. The leeks have been in here for a few months now, and they're okay. Again, we've multi-sown them because we're not after massive gigantic leeks. Now these are my Swedes in the middle, which you can see the pigeons have had an absolute field day. Now I know it's pigeons because I've caught them multiple times, and I really do need to net these over. Jerusalem artichokes, really getting tall and big now. A couple of courgette plants, which are really struggling to get pollinated, but hopefully there's still time left for them to produce. And some of our corn. Now it has started to produce its tassels, but it will carry on growing. These tassels are what actually pollinate your corn for future, so don't remove them. It hasn't gone to bolt, it's not going to cause any issues. Without those tassels you will have no cobs, so don't remove them. These particular outdoor tomatoes always seem to have some kind of leaf curl. Now, leaf curl can happen either too much water, not enough water, too much sun, not enough sun. It can be too much breeze. Basically, it's your tomato plant's way of saying it's stressed. In general though, I don't stress over a tomato leaf curling. Sometimes you can over panic and not actually realise what the actual issue is, and then you can overcompensate. As an example with watering, you may think it's too wet, so you don't water, but in fact it was actually too dry. It could be because it's got not enough food, and then you overcompensate with one mineral or another, causing other issues along the way. So I just chill out with the tomatoes, do what I do, and if we get tomatoes from them, great. But I think sometimes overcompensating for the sight of certain leaves or conditions can actually make things a lot worse. This is the rest of the potatoes that we've actually got left in the ground. Now the first few rows we didn't even have more than a couple of litres of potatoes. Obviously I've got my sunflowers in, gotta make the use of the ground somehow. But these are all, I think, mids to lates, so it'll be a little while to actually harvest these. And obviously the last lot of corn that I've got over there with its tassels blowing in the wind. Now these Crown Prince squashes, I'm literally going to leave to go whichever direction they want to go. They can cover the ground, go over other plants. I'm using them this year as ground cover with an advantage of a food crop at the end. Squashes are doing okay. Those lettuces are ginormous. Again, pretty much bolted. But we've left them in there as it's covering the ground, so it's not an issue. Now the greenhouse. As you can see, my Emir melons have really pushed on now. And these are the baby watermelons. This is the Emir. Baby watermelon and baby watermelon. With chilli plants. Now, to be honest, I wish I hadn't put the chilli plants in here. We didn't need any more. So, But never mind. We've got some changes coming for next year's growth. So now these Cape gooseberries are weird. Now they've started actually fruiting. Don't know whether, yeah, you can see it there. Now these plants are absolutely tiny, and I mean tiny. Now everything, I've never grown them before, and everything that I've read talks about how big that they actually can get. Now obviously I have got them outside, and they like a lot of warmth. Now this one's got an awful lot more flowers on, but again, it's tiny. They're all tiny. And my gherkin plants are producing. But I haven't quite got enough to make my pickles yet. But they are looking a bit sad for themselves today. I think they need a good water. Very, very brief tour. It's actually really hard to actually do a good tour of this allotment with so much going on in so many beds. But we're getting harvests and we're getting half decent growth. So don't give up on your plots if you're struggling this year. You'll always be able to harvest something in general. But now really is a good time to start planning what you would like to try for the following years or for this season. There is still things that you can grow. It really does lift the spirit when you're outside in the fresh air. It can dramatically change your mood and your outlook on life. So just try to keep positive. If there is any issues that's going on with your plot, just remember that even the big professionals and the big growers, who may not always admit it, but they still have failures too. So that's our plot from the 1st of July.